Your mind is not broken. It has simply been running a program that nobody ever taught you how to turn off. Right now, as you listen to these words, there is a signal traveling through your body that tells your brain to keep worrying, keep scanning for problems, keep the mental noise running even when there is nothing left to solve. Most people spend their entire lives trying to think their way out of this loop. They try positive affirmations, they try to reason with their anxious thoughts, they try to convince themselves that everything is fine. But the noise keeps coming back because they are targeting the wrong system entirely. They are trying to fix a body problem with a mind solution. What if I told you that your anxious mind has almost nothing to do with your thoughts? What if the racing mental chatter is not a thinking problem at all, but a breathing problem? This is what researchers at Stanford, Yale, and the HeartMath Institute have been discovering over the past decade. And it changes everything we thought we knew about anxiety, about mental peace, and about that constant hum of worry that so many people accept as normal. There is a breathing trick that can quiet your anxious mind within minutes, not hours, not weeks of practice, minutes. The technique itself is almost embarrassingly simple, but the science behind why it works is profound. Monks in Tibetan monasteries have practiced variations of this for thousands of years. They did not have brain imaging technology or heart rate monitors. They simply observed what worked and passed it down through generations. Today, I am going to explain exactly how this works at the level of your nervous system, not the mystical version, the biological one. Because once you understand what is actually happening when anxiety takes over, and what breath has to do with it, you will have access to a tool that works whether you believe in it or not. A tool that is always with you. A tool that costs nothing and requires no equipment. Let me start by explaining what is actually happening in your brain when anxiety runs the show. This matters because most approaches to anxiety fail by targeting symptoms instead of the source. Understanding the mechanism is the first step to real change. Most people have never been taught what anxiety actually is at the biological level. Deep in the center of your brain sits a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Think of it as your internal alarm system. Its job is to detect potential threats and trigger a protective response before your conscious mind even realizes something might be wrong. When the amygdala perceives danger, it sends an urgent message to your hypothalamus, which then activates your sympathetic nervous system. This is the famous fight or flight response that you have probably heard about. Within milliseconds, your entire body transforms. Your heart rate accelerates to pump more blood to your muscles. Your breathing becomes shallow and rapid to take in more oxygen quickly. Cortisol and adrenaline flood your bloodstream. Your pupils dilate to take in more visual information. Blood flow shifts away from your digestive organs toward your limbs. Your muscles tense, ready for action. Every system in your body prepares for physical combat or rapid escape. This system evolved to save your life. When a predator appeared, your ancestors needed to react instantly, without pausing to think or analyze the situation. The amygdala made that possible. It is a brilliant survival mechanism that has been refined over millions of years of evolution. Without it, the human species would have gone extinct long ago. But here is the critical problem that creates so much suffering in the modern world. Your amygdala cannot distinguish between a real physical threat and an imagined psychological one. A tiger charging at you triggers the same response as worrying about a presentation next week. An angry email from your boss activates the same cascade as facing actual mortal danger. Your nervous system treats thoughts about threats exactly the same as actual threats. Your body does not know the difference between imagination and reality when it comes to danger. It responds to the thought of threat exactly as it would respond to the presence of threat. This is why you can be sitting safely in your home, with food in the refrigerator and a roof over your head and locks on every door, and still feel your heart pounding, your chest tightening, and your thoughts spiraling into worst-case scenarios. Now here is where it gets even more important to understand. When anxiety changes your breathing into that shallow, rapid, chest-focused pattern, you are actually sending a confirmation signal back to your brain. Your breathing is telling your amygdala that yes, there really is a threat. Stay vigilant. Keep the alarm running. Do not let your guard down for even a moment. This creates a feedback loop that can run for hours, days, or even years without interruption. Anxiety changes your breathing. Your breathing tells your brain to stay anxious. The brain responds by generating more anxious thoughts to match the physical state it perceives. Those thoughts trigger more shallow breathing. And round it goes, potentially for your entire life, if nobody teaches you how to interrupt it. Most people try to break this loop by working on their thoughts. They attempt cognitive restructuring techniques. They practice challenging their negative beliefs. They try to think positive and reframe their worries, and sometimes this helps a little. But it rarely solves the problem completely because thoughts are not where the loop is strongest. The loop is strongest in the body, in the breath, in the physical patterns that have become automatic. If you are finding this helpful, take a moment to subscribe and hit the like button. It helps more people discover this information, and it tells me to keep making content that explores the science of how your nervous system actually works. There is a specific nerve in your body that holds the key to breaking this cycle. It is called the vagus nerve, and scientists sometimes refer to it as the wandering nerve because of how it travels throughout your body, touching so many different organs. It starts in your brainstem and branches down through your neck, chest, and abdomen, connecting your brain to your heart, lungs, stomach, intestines, liver, and many other vital organs. The vagus nerve is the primary communication channel for your parasympathetic nervous system. If the sympathetic system is the accelerator that speeds everything up during stress, the parasympathetic system is the brake that slows everything down during recovery. When the vagus nerve is activated strongly, your heart rate decreases, your blood pressure drops, your muscles relax, your digestion improves, and crucially for our purposes, the anxious chatter in your mind begins to fade. Here is the remarkable part that most people never learn. You can directly stimulate your vagus nerve through your breath, not through years of meditation practice, not through medication with side effects, not through willpower or positive thinking, through the simple physical act of breathing in a specific pattern that has been verified by modern neuroscience. The mechanism involves something called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. This is a natural variation in your heart rate that occurs with each breath cycle. When you inhale, your heart rate naturally increases slightly. When you exhale, it decreases. This is normal and healthy. In fact, the degree of this variation is one of the primary markers of a healthy, resilient nervous system. When you extend your exhale to be longer than your inhale, you are essentially pressing the brake pedal of your nervous system repeatedly with each breath. Each long exhale sends a signal through your vagus nerve telling your brain that there is no threat. The situation is safe. The alarm can be turned off. The mental noise can quiet down because there is nothing that requires constant vigilance anymore. The most effective ratio that researchers have identified is approximately 1 to 2. If you inhale for 4 seconds, you exhale for 8 seconds. If you inhale for 5 seconds, you exhale for 10. The precise numbers matter less than maintaining this ratio, where your exhale is roughly twice as long as your inhale. This ratio has been validated across multiple research studies. Let me explain exactly how to perform this technique so you can practice it correctly. First, find a comfortable position. You can sit in a chair with your feet flat on the floor, or you can lie down on your back. Your spine should be relatively straight but not rigid or tense. Place one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly just below your ribs. This hand placement is important for feedback. Most people with anxious minds breathe primarily into their chest without realizing it. You can probably feel this if you pay attention right now. When you inhale, your chest rises and your shoulders move upward slightly. This type of breathing is associated with the stress response. It is exactly how you would breathe if you were running from danger or preparing to fight. For this technique to work properly, you need to shift to belly breathing, also called diaphragmatic breathing. When you inhale, your belly should expand outward as your diaphragm moves down and your lungs fill from the bottom. The hand on your belly should rise while the hand on your chest stays relatively still. This might feel awkward at first if you have been chest breathing for years, but it will become natural with consistent practice. Now add the timing element. Breathe in slowly through your nose for 4 counts, feeling your belly rise and expand outward. Do not pause at the top of the breath. Immediately begin to exhale through your nose or mouth for 8 counts, feeling your belly fall back down. The exhale should be slow and controlled, not forced or strained. Imagine you are breathing out through a very thin straw, steady and gentle. As soon as the exhale completes, begin the next inhale without pausing. There is no gap between breaths. It should flow continuously, like a wave on the ocean. 4 counts in, belly rises. 8 counts out, belly falls. Repeat this cycle for a minimum of 5 minutes, though 10 to 15 minutes will produce stronger and more lasting effects. What most people notice in the first minute or two is resistance from their nervous system. Your anxious mind does not want to slow down because it perceives the slow rhythm as somehow dangerous. 8 seconds of exhaling can feel like an eternity when your system is used to rapid, shallow breathing. You might feel an urge to gasp or speed up. Your mind might tell you this is not working or that you are not getting enough air. This resistance is actually a sign that you need this practice more than most people. Your nervous system has adapted to a constant state of low-level emergency, and it interprets the unfamiliar sensation of calm as something wrong or dangerous. Push through gently. Do not force, but persist. Your body is not actually running out of oxygen. It is just unfamiliar with this slower rhythm. Somewhere around the 2 to 3 minute mark, something shifts in most people. Many report a moment where their shoulders suddenly drop without them consciously deciding to relax. Their jaw unclenches, the tightness in their chest releases, and the mental noise that seems so loud and insistent begins to fade into the background like a radio being turned down. This is not a placebo effect. This is a direct physiological change caused by vagal stimulation that can be measured with the right equipment. Your heart rate variability is increasing. Your blood pressure is decreasing. Stress hormones are being cleared from your bloodstream. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational thinking part of your brain, is coming back online as the amygdala's alarm quiets down. Now I want to share something that might help you go deeper with this work. I have put together a complete guide called the Vagus Nerve Reset Protocol. It covers the full range of techniques for strengthening your vagus nerve and resetting your nervous system beyond just this breathing method. The guide includes specific morning and evening routines that I personally use. Protocols for acute anxiety, moments when you need immediate relief. Detailed sections on cold exposure and vocal toning practices that amplify the effects, and information about dietary factors that support vagal health. Everything is laid out step by step, so you can build a complete practice that fits your life and your schedule. If you want to take this seriously, the link is in the description and pinned in the comments. Let me continue by explaining what happens when you practice this consistently over time. The immediate effects are powerful, but the long-term transformation is where the real lasting change occurs. Most people give up before they experience the deeper benefits because they expect instant, permanent results. Your nervous system has a quality called neuroplasticity. It can physically change and rewire itself based on repeated experiences over time. When you practice extended exhale breathing regularly, you are training your vagus nerve to become stronger and more responsive. Scientists call this vagal tone. Higher vagal tone means your nervous system can shift between states more fluidly and appropriately. High vagal tone means your nervous system can activate when needed for real challenges, and then return to baseline quickly when the challenge passes. People with high vagal tone recover from stress faster. They experience less chronic anxiety. They sleep better and more deeply. They even show reduced inflammation markers and improved immune function. The benefits extend far beyond just feeling calmer. Research from various institutions has shown that consistent slow breathing practice increases heart rate variability, which is the primary measure of vagal tone. Studies using brain imaging have demonstrated that these practices increase activity in the prefrontal cortex while decreasing activity in the amygdala. The thinking brain gets stronger while the alarm system gets quieter. This is exactly what you want. One particularly interesting study found that just 5 minutes of coherent breathing practice produced measurable changes in brainwave patterns even in first-time practitioners. After 8 weeks of daily practice, participants showed significant reductions in anxiety symptoms that persisted even when they were not actively practicing. Their baseline state had shifted. Their nervous system had learned a new normal. Let me address something that happens to some people when they first try this technique. Instead of feeling calmer, they actually feel more anxious or uncomfortable. This seems backwards, but there is a logical explanation that makes sense once you understand it. When you have been in a chronic state of sympathetic activation for months or years, your nervous system adapts to that elevated state. It becomes your familiar baseline. It actually starts to feel normal, even safe in a strange way. Your body knows how to operate there, even if it is wearing you down gradually. When you suddenly activate the parasympathetic system strongly, it can feel deeply unfamiliar and even threatening. Your nervous system does not recognize this calm state anymore. It might even interpret the unfamiliarity as a new kind of threat to respond to. This is why some people feel a surge of anxiety when they first start relaxing deeply. If this happens to you, it is actually a positive sign that should encourage you. It means the practice is working and affecting your nervous system. You are encountering the edge of your comfort zone. The solution is not to stop, but to proceed more gradually. Start with just 2 or 3 minutes instead of 10. Use a smaller ratio like 4 seconds in and 6 seconds out instead of 4 and 8. Build up slowly as your nervous system learns that parasympathetic states are safe. Another common experience during extended exhale breathing is emotional release that can catch people off guard. As your body relaxes more deeply than it has in a long time, stored tension can surface unexpectedly. This might show up as unexpected tears, waves of sadness, old memories arising, or feelings you cannot quite name or explain. This is not something going wrong. It is accumulated stress finally having permission to move through you. When your nervous system is stuck in survival mode, it does not have the resources to process emotions fully. They get stored in the body, held in muscle tension and nervous system patterns, waiting for a time when it is safe to feel them. Deep breathing practice can create that safety. If emotions arise, keep breathing through them. Let them move through without resisting. They will pass, usually within minutes, and you will feel lighter afterward. Let me give you a simple protocol for incorporating this into your daily life that actually works. Consistency is more important than duration. 10 minutes twice per day will produce better results than 1 hour once per week. Your nervous system responds to repeated signals more than single intense sessions, no matter how long they are. The ideal times to practice are morning and evening for most people. In the morning, before you check your phone, before the demands of the day begin, 5 to 10 minutes of extended exhale breathing establishes a calm baseline for everything that follows. You start the day in parasympathetic mode, which means stressors will have less impact and you will think more clearly under pressure. In the evening, practice 15 to 30 minutes before you plan to sleep. This clears the accumulated stress of the day and signals to your body that it is safe to rest. Many people with anxious minds struggle to fall asleep because their nervous system is still running in alert mode from the day. The breathing practice tells your body that the day is over and recovery can begin. You can also use this technique as an emergency intervention when anxiety spikes during the day. Before a difficult meeting, after receiving stressful news, when you notice your thoughts beginning to spiral out of control, even just 10 breaths with extended exhales can interrupt the anxiety cycle and give your rational brain a chance to come back online. There are several variations that can make this practice even more powerful once you have mastered the basics. The first is adding a gentle hum to your exhale. Humming or making a low-pitched sound causes vibration in your throat that directly stimulates the vagus nerve because of where the nerve passes. This is why chanting traditions exist across so many different cultures. They discovered empirically what science is now confirming. The second variation is adding brief cold exposure to your routine. Splashing cold water on your face or ending your shower with 30 seconds of cold water activates a reflex called the dive response that strongly stimulates the vagus nerve. The initial shock is sympathetic activation, but the body's recovery creates a powerful parasympathetic rebound. Combined with breathing practice, this can accelerate your results significantly. The third variation is practicing with your attention focused on your heart area. Some research suggests that focusing awareness on the physical sensation in your chest while breathing amplifies the coherence between your heart rhythm and your brain waves. This is a central technique in HeartMath methodology, and many people find it adds a dimension of depth to their practice. I want to address a misconception that some people have about breathing practices like this one. They think it is a form of avoidance or suppression, a way to avoid dealing with anxiety rather than address its real causes. This understanding is actually completely backwards. When your nervous system is in chronic fight or flight, your thinking is compromised. You cannot see your situation clearly. You cannot process emotions properly. You cannot make wise decisions about changing the circumstances that might be contributing to your stress. You are operating from reactivity rather than responsiveness. The breathing practice does not suppress anything or help you avoid problems. It creates the physiological foundation for real insight and change to become possible. When you are calm, you can actually examine what is causing your anxiety. You can have difficult conversations without being hijacked by fear. You can recognize what you can change and accept what you cannot. The practice is not the end point. It is the stable ground from which real transformation becomes possible. Let me share what the research says about long-term committed practice. Studies have followed people who practice slow breathing techniques regularly for periods of 3 months or longer. The results are consistent and significant across different populations. Anxiety symptoms decrease not just during practice, but throughout the day and night. Sleep quality improves markedly. Heart rate variability increases, indicating better vagal tone. Resting heart rate often decreases. Blood pressure tends to normalize. Some studies show reductions in inflammatory markers. Others show improved immune function. The benefits are systemic and far-reaching. Perhaps most importantly, people report a qualitative shift in their relationship with their own mind. The anxious thoughts may still arise, but they have less grip. There is more space between stimulus and response. The volume of the mental noise decreases, and it becomes easier to distinguish between thoughts that are useful and thoughts that are just anxious static that can be ignored. One study from researchers in Italy found that participants who practiced slow breathing for 10 minutes daily showed changes in gene expression related to stress response after just 8 weeks. Their bodies were literally becoming less reactive to stress at the cellular level. This is not simply relaxation. This is biological transformation that persists. As I begin to close, I want to offer a perspective that might be useful for your journey with this practice. Most people approach their anxious mind as an enemy to be defeated. They fight the anxiety. They try to make it go away. They treat each anxious thought as evidence of a problem they need to solve immediately. But what if you approached it differently? What if you understood that your anxious mind is not malfunctioning at all? It is actually doing exactly what it evolved to do. It is scanning for threats and preparing your body to respond. The problem is not the system itself. The problem is that the system is miscalibrated for modern life. Your amygdala evolved in an environment where threats were immediate and physical. It did not evolve to handle chronic psychological stress, information overload, and the constant low-level activation that modern life produces. It is trying to protect you using tools designed for a world that no longer exists. It deserves compassion, not hatred. The breathing practice is not about fighting this system or overriding it with force. It is about recalibrating it gently over time. You are teaching your nervous system that not every stimulus requires alarm mode. You are showing your amygdala through direct physiological feedback that safety is possible. You are expanding the range of experiences your body can interpret as okay. This perspective matters because fighting anxiety tends to create more tension, and tension feeds anxiety. Working with your nervous system compassionately, understanding that it is trying to protect you even when its methods are counterproductive, allows for a different kind of relationship with your own mind. It allows for healing rather than endless battle. The anxious thoughts may never disappear completely. They are part of having a brain that is wired for survival. but the volume can decrease dramatically. The grip can loosen. The space between you and your thoughts can expand until the noise becomes background static rather than the dominant experience of your waking life. The technique I have shared today is simple enough that you could dismiss it as too easy. Breathe in for 4, out for 8. It sounds almost too simple to actually change anything significant. But this simplicity is precisely its power. You need nothing outside yourself. No equipment, no special circumstances, no money. Just the breath that is already moving through your body every moment of your life. Start tonight. Before you sleep, give yourself 5 minutes. 4 counts in, 8 counts out. Belly rising and falling. Notice what happens. Notice where you feel resistance. Notice if any emotions arise. And notice how the mental noise responds to this simple intervention. Do it again tomorrow morning before you check your phone, and the next day, and the next. Build a minimum of 21 consecutive days to establish the habit and begin experiencing real neurological change. Keep a simple note of your baseline anxiety level each day on a scale of 1 to 10. Most people notice significant improvement within the first week and deeper changes within the first month. Your anxious mind is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that your nervous system needs a different signal. It has been waiting for you to tell it that the emergency is over, that safety is possible, that it can finally rest. That signal is your breath, and it is always available to you no matter where you are or what is happening around you. Share this video with someone who struggles with an anxious mind. Sometimes the information finds people at exactly the right moment when they need it most. Subscribe if you want more content exploring the science of your nervous system, and leave a comment telling me what you notice when you try this practice. This is Parasympathetic, and I will see you in the next one. There is something else I want to share about the timing of results that sets realistic expectations. The first session produces noticeable effects in most people. You will feel something shift, but these initial effects are temporary. Your nervous system returns to its habitual patterns within hours, because one session is not enough to create lasting change. Think of it like going to the gym once. You might feel good afterward, but you will not see lasting physical changes from a single workout. The same principle applies here. Real transformation requires consistent practice over weeks and months. The nervous system needs repeated signals before it accepts a new pattern as the default. Most people notice a meaningful shift in their baseline anxiety levels somewhere between week 2 and week 4 of daily practice. This is when the neural pathways for calm start to compete with the neural pathways for anxiety. The more you use the calm pathways, the stronger they become, and the weaker the anxiety pathways get. By month 3, the changes often feel permanent. People describe it as a fundamental shift in how they relate to stress. The triggers that used to send them spiraling now produce a much smaller response. Recovery happens faster. The mental noise has less volume and less grip. They feel like a different person, or perhaps more accurately, they feel like themselves again. I should also mention something about what this practice does not do. It does not eliminate all sources of stress from your life. It does not solve your problems for you. It does not make difficult situations magically easy. What it does is change your relationship to stress. It gives you a calmer, clearer mind from which to face whatever challenges exist. Some people expect breathing practice to make them feel good all the time. This is not realistic. Life still has difficulties. Emotions still arise. Bad days still happen. But there is a profound difference between facing challenges from a regulated nervous system versus facing them from a dysregulated one. The practice gives you that regulated foundation. There is also an important point about practicing during acute anxiety versus practicing preventatively. Both are valuable, but they serve different purposes. Using the technique when you feel anxious is helpful for immediate relief, but the deeper benefits come from practicing when you are not particularly anxious. This is when you are building the foundation. This is when you are strengthening the vagal pathways. Think of it like building physical fitness. You do not wait until you need to run from danger to start exercising. You build your fitness in advance so that when challenges come, you have the capacity to meet them. The same logic applies to nervous system fitness. Build your vagal tone during calm times so that when stress comes, you have the resilience to handle it. Let me also address a question that often arises about whether this practice can replace medication or therapy for people with clinical anxiety disorders. I am not a medical professional, and I cannot give medical advice. What I can say is that breathing practices are complementary, not necessarily replacements. They work well alongside other treatments. Many therapists now incorporate breathing techniques into their practice precisely because they enhance other approaches. They help clients regulate enough to do the deeper work of therapy. They provide tools that can be used between sessions. They address the physiological component of anxiety that talk therapy alone may not fully reach. If you are currently on medication or working with a therapist, do not stop those treatments without consulting your healthcare provider. The breathing practice can be added to whatever else you are doing. It is a tool in your toolkit, not the only tool you might need. One final thing I want to emphasize is the importance of patience with yourself during this process. Your nervous system did not become dysregulated overnight, and it will not heal overnight either. The patterns of anxiety have been reinforced for years, possibly decades. They are deeply grooved into your neurology. Every time you practice, you are carving a new groove. At first, it is shallow and easy to slip out of. The old patterns are deep and familiar, but with repetition, the new groove deepens. The practice becomes easier. The calm state becomes more accessible. Eventually, the new pattern becomes the dominant one. Be patient with the process. Be compassionate with yourself when you forget to practice, or when anxiety seems to win. This is not a linear journey. There will be setbacks. There will be days when the mental noise is as loud as ever. This does not mean the practice is not working. It means healing takes time and life is not a straight line. What matters is that you keep returning to the breath. Keep pressing that parasympathetic brake. Keep sending the signal to your nervous system that safety is possible. Over time, the message gets through. The system recalibrates, and the anxious mind that once seemed like your permanent companion becomes a visitor that shows up less and less frequently.